You may be seated. I thought that did it work? Yeah, I don't have it.
I'll go back.
Last night it was. Okay.
Your Honor, calling People versus Jennifer Crumbley, case number 222799990 FH.
Chair McDonald on behalf of the people.
Thank you, Mark Keast on behalf of the people.
Thank you. I'm Shannon Smith on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley.
She's on her way up.
Thank you.
All right. I have it. I probably just brought it.
I know, until you get here.
I just brought it with me onto my desk. Anything? She's on her way up. Are there some things you wanted to put on the record before the jury comes in?
I believe so, Your Honor.
We had a discussion off the record to plan our going forward here. So I think there was a few things we resolved. I know. One of the things is the Facebook.
That's what I was going to address.
But do you want to do that outside the presence of the jury or in front of the jury?
Oh no, I actually think we should do it in front of the jury. Because
Okay,
that's
I agree.
right.
I agree. I agree.
Counsel needs to walk her client. I think that should happen outside the presence of the jury.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Mrs. Crumbley, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do.
And can you tell me your name?
Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay, we just have a few questions for you, okay?
Okay, Mrs. Crumbley, when we were in court on Friday, there was discussion about admitting the Facebook Messenger messages between yourself and James Crumbley.
Correct.
Do you recall that?
Yes.
And on Saturday, I came over to the jail to see you, and that was specifically a topic we discussed.
Yes.
Okay, and at this time, we have talked about how during the trial, there was talk about redacting portions of that Facebook Messenger thread pursuant to other orders, correct?
Correct.
And the court offered me the opportunity to redact portions of that record.
Correct.
And after you and I discussed it, it's fair to say that you and I believe that it would look like we are hiding evidence from the jury if they saw a redacted version of Exhibit 423, correct?
Correct.
Okay, wait till I finish speaking before you start. Okay, so at this time, I have let the court know that we are not moving for any redactions and that Exhibit 423 will be admitted, showing your entire phone conversation with James on Facebook Messenger. And Your Honor, there's specific dates it's from, so I think I should put the dates on the record.
Yeah, it might be on the...
Yeah, let me just grab it. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the exhibit. It wasn't with the initial folder I had. Do you know the dates?
January 21.
Okay, so
early 2021.
It's the entire Facebook Messenger thread between you and Mr. Crumbley starting in January of 2021, and it goes up through the events that lead us here today.
Correct.
Okay, is it your decision to allow those Facebook messages to be admitted in the court without redaction?
Yes.
And you and I have talked about the pros and cons of redacting those exhibits.
Correct.
And at this time, you understand they will be admitted without any redactions.
I do.
And just a few.
Sure.
Mrs. Crumbley, you understand that Exhibit 423 won't just be given to the jury, but the prosecution can go through that with either you on a cross-examination or with other witnesses.
Correct.
And you consulted with your attorney specifically about that point?
Yes.
And it is your decision as a defendant in the case, in consultation with your attorney as part of trial strategy, to admit this entire exhibit?
Yes.
And to be clear, this is the Facebook message thread
Mhm.
between Jennifer and James Crumbley beginning January 1, 2021, and it's over 2,000 pages long.
Exhibit 423.
And Mrs. Crumbley, you understand that throughout the pendency of this case, your attorney on your behalf has sought to exclude certain themes or topics of evidence, in some cases successfully, yet this Facebook conversation does touch upon some of those.
I understand.
And you still want 423 to be admitted into evidence and referenced by the prosecution and defense.
Yes.
I'm satisfied.
All right, anything else that has to be out of the presence of the jury at the moment? We're dealing with your other, we're gonna deal with your other issue that you brought up about the snow.
Snow.
About the
Oh, yes, okay.
But we'll get back to you. Okay.
Okay.
What else? All right, we're gonna bring the jury in, okay?
Thank you, Judge.
All rise for the jury.
Good morning, you may be seated. Thank you again for being timely. We weren't ignoring you, we were just sort of paving the way. So every day requires some certain preparation, so we appreciate you. Who's the next witness?
Ms. Kira Pennick.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, may I please address the court?
Sure.
Okay. Your Honor, on Friday, I think it was very clear beyond a reasonable doubt, I have difficulty and cannot use technology. In my frustration, I made a comment that was offensive to victims, families, and I did it absolutely by accident as I was struggling with my computer. I am apologizing for that comment. I want to apologize to the jurors, to the audience, to all involved, and specifically to the victims and the families of the victims. I truly did not mean to say the comment I made.
I believe that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do you want to approach just for a second? I'm supposed to ask the camera person to cut them out. Yeah, it's new today. Kira Pennick.
Ms. Kira Pennick.
Good morning. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do.
All right, could you be seated, and then would you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name, please?
My name is Kira Pennock, Kirapennock.
Thank you. Go ahead, prosecutor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kira, can you tell the jury how old you are?
I am 27.
Okay. And you actually have a pretty robust career at 27. Can you tell the jury what you do?
I own and run a horse farm We do boarding and lessons and training
And how long have you been owning and running the farm?
since May of 21.
Okay. You said for the people in the jury or council, explain what a horse farm actually does. You said boarding and riding lessons, but what does that actually mean?
So people will own horses, and they don't always have the means to have them at their house, so they will board them over at my place. So I take care of them, I feed them, I water them, I clean up after them, and then they can come visit their horses whenever they want.
Okay. And so the boarding includes feeding and watering the horse. That's all one price.
Yes, it also includes like cleaning up after them, but I mean really just any of the care that they might need for just general living.
Okay. And how much is the cost of boarding one horse?
Board at that time was $400 for pasture board, so their horses outside 24/7 with access to a shelter if they wanted to use it.
Okay, $400 per horse.
Yes.
Okay. What's not included in boarding?
Vet bills. So if the vet has to come out and do something with the horse. The farrier, so the person
Again,
that works
what
on the feet.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's basically kind of a pedicure for the horse, so that has to happen every 6 to 8 weeks. And then also lessons. Student lessons are not included, so those are separate.
And how much are lessons?
$35.
And how much for the vet bill, a vet or a farrier?
It really just depends on the horse, and then like what that horse needs. So, a horse needs routine vaccinations each year and just kind of general checkup. But there are other expenses as for like emergency vet calls. So your horse injured themselves or is colicking, and then we have to have an unscheduled appointment with the vet.
Okay, so an average appointment, not including any of the services or the extra medicine or procedures, would be around what?
It really varies, but I would say probably maybe at least $100.
Okay. And the vet comes to the barn?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know someone named Jennifer Crumbley?
I do.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you describe something she's wearing for the court?
She has glasses on.
And she's seated over at that table, correct?
Yes.
All right. May the record reflect she's properly identified Jennifer Crumbley.
The record will reflect in court identification of the defendant Jennifer Crumbley.
Thank you. Do you also know James Crumbley?
I do.
Okay, when did you meet the two of them? At the same time or separate times?
I believe that I had met Jennifer first, and it was probably between 3 and 5 years ago that I had actually met them for the first time, but not actually gotten to know them.
Okay, when you met the two of them, how many horses did they own?
One.
And did you meet them because they wanted to board at your farm?
No, they were boarding their horse at a barn that one of my friends had worked at.
And then at some point, did they change their barn?
Yes.
When was that, if you know?
I do not remember the exact day or year, but they ended up moving to the barn that I had priorly boarded at before I bought my farm.
Okay, when they did board their horses at your farm, though, correct?
Yes.
All right. When? About what time? Year? Month?
They started boarding their horses, which by then they had bought the second horse. They had started boarding, I believe, in the July time period of 21.
Okay. Who did you know better, James or Jennifer?
Jennifer.
All right. And can you describe Jennifer's general demeanor when you were working with her? And well, back up. What kind of interactions would you have with Jennifer, and what? Just talking about the horse that she was boarding, or was there anything else that you did with Jennifer?
A majority of our conversations were related to the horses and maybe talking about goals for the future for possibly showing or just training goals in general to figure out the best plan of action for the lessons that I was giving.
So did you give her lessons?
I did.
Okay, how often would you give her a lesson?
I would say between 2 and 3 times a week.
Okay, and when did that occur?
Usually in the evenings.
So did Jennifer come to the barn in the evenings during the weekdays, or was it on weekends, or both?
Well, she came in the evenings during the week, usually after work, and then weekends, she would come in the morning, afternoon, evening, but
Okay.
I can't say for sure the exact time usually.
And did you say how many times during the week, the work week?
I would say probably at least 2 to 3 times during the week.
And about, on the average, what time would she arrive?
About 4:35-ish.
Okay. And stay about how long, if you know?
Couple hours, so at least maybe 2 to 3 hours.
And was that just getting lessons, or were there other things that she was doing?
Just getting her horse ready for a lesson and doing the lesson and then cooling the horse down and taking them back out to their pasture. And then just everybody at the barn is pretty friendly. Everybody will talk, so just small conversation.
So the boarding and the feeding is just the basic care. Is there a lot more things you have to do to take care of a horse if you're the owner?
The owner pays the barn where the horse is boarded at to do the general care of the horse, like the day-to-day things such as giving them water and grain and hay and cleaning up after them and maybe changing blankets and different things to make sure that they stay warm.
So there's a amended exhibit which includes the Facebook messages between Jennifer and James. Were they both taking care of the horses? And the reason I ask is there seems to be a lot of communication between the two of them about taking care of the horses, so I'm trying to get at what else would they be doing other than just feeding the horse and, you said, cooling it off and taking it. I'm not a horse person, so taking it out to pasture, and does it have to be, do you have to ride your horses? Like what's the responsibility there?
Most likely what they might be talking about is maybe some of the vet care. So I know one of their horses had what's called mud fever. It's kind of a fungus stuff that might grow on the legs of a horse with wet weather. And that usually is something that ends up needing a vet to intervene with just medication to help take care of it. So it might be related to maybe the vet bills. And maybe just vet appointments related to taking care of the horses.
Okay. And you said they own 2 horses. What are their names?
One is named Billy and one is named Shorty.
Okay. What kind of horses were there in terms of value of the horses? There, I know horses can be very expensive to purchase. Where do these horses fall on that continuum?
Well, they were both thoroughbreds, so they raced on the racetrack before they had gotten them. But I do not know how much Shorty was purchased for. I believe that Billy was purchased around like $5,000.
Okay. And how do you know how much Billy was?
She was sending me, or Jennifer was sending me information on him when she was looking for a horse.
Okay. And do you know anything about the circumstances of when she or how she bought that horse?
I know that she was talking about it late at night, and she was also drinking.
Okay. How do the people that board your horses and have lessons give lessons? How do they pay you?
Your Honor, I need to make an objection. The witness's answer was in part non-responsive, and I'd ask to be struck from the record.
Yeah, it was, I think it was, unless there's follow-up, I think it was somewhat unresponsive.
The Facebook message string that was just admitted details exactly how the horse was purchased, so we can. I'm happy to move on and we'll deal with it then.
I don't know, I haven't read those. So.
The portion I'm objecting to is the unnecessary information about she was drinking at the time.
Okay.
I think it's relevant. I think if you're buying a $5,000 horse while you were drinking late at night is relevant to the case and the relationship that Jennifer Crumbley had in her priorities, and as well as the fact that the Facebook message string that was just stipulated to an admission without redactions, like, it just absolutely discusses that.
Okay, next question.
Okay. How do people pay? Cash, check, credit card?
It can be any of those. A lot of people now use online payments like Venmo.
Okay. How did the Crumbleys pay you for your services?
Check.
Okay. And did James ever take lessons?
I have given him a few lessons.
So who was taking care of the horse during the day? Did Jennifer ever come during the day, during the week, or was it James, or did they both?
Well, the general care every day was done by the barn, but say if there was a need to have the vet out, we usually like to have the owners present, so they would usually have one of them at whatever vet appointment.
Okay. So you just testified they moved their horses to your barn July of 2021. You knew them approximately a year before that, 2 years?
They had boarded at the barn that I had my horses boarded at prior to buying my farm. I do not recall how much time we had boarded together there, but I had met them a couple years prior to
Okay,
that.
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So you've known them a couple years before they came to your barn?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know that if Jennifer had a son?
Yes.
And did you ever meet their son?
I may have met him maybe once or twice.
Where, if you know, where was that? Was it at your barn?
It was not at my barn.
Okay. Did you ever see their son come to your barn?
No, I did not.
So the 2 to 3 times a week and on the weekend when Jennifer would visit, did she bring anybody with her?
Usually James.
Okay.
I don't remember anybody else really coming out and with her.
Okay. Do you allow kids at the barn?
Yes, we do.
And what are the kids that are at the barn usually doing?
Usually doing lessons. You know, some of the kids that are doing lessons, they have siblings that are brought out, so they just kind of maybe occupy their time with the barn cats or seeing the other horses on the property.
Okay. And do you have any family oriented activities or get-togethers?
We have. We've had a family reunion.
Meaning
before, but
parties or activities that children are welcome to come to?
yes, all of the events that we might have at the farm, kids are invited to. Like we've had parties like Halloween party before too.
Okay, around Halloween of 2021, do you remember if you had a Halloween party?
Yes, we did.
Do you know when it was and about what time of day it was?
I do not remember what day it was, but I know that it was afternoon, evening-ish.
Was it on Halloween or before Halloween?
It was before Halloween.
Okay, and it was a weekday or weeknight?
It was on a weekend, I believe.
A Friday or Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. Did Jennifer come to that party?
Yes.
And how do you remember that?
I remember that both Jennifer and James had come to the party, and they were dressed up, and like our parties, we include the horses, so people will also dress their horses up for
They put Halloween
party.
costumes on horses?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Okay. And do you know if they dressed their horses up that year?
Not really dressing them up. They wanted to, but they had also said that they had another party to go to after
Okay.
mine.
So you did not see their son that night?
I did not.
Okay. Did Jennifer talk to you about her son?
Not a ton. But every once in a while she would mention something about him.
And what if do you remember things that she would say?
Usually it was along the lines of she was having problems with him, or he wasn't acting normal. She had called him weird before. She wanted him to do normal kid things.
Okay.
But I never remember her saying anything about, like, you know, really bringing him out to the barn much or really doing much. I mean, they would go on vacations. I did hear about some vacations that they had gone on, but really there was not much talk about her son.
Did she ever refer to him as a certain name? Did she speak negatively about him, or was it or positively?
There was nothing truly positive when she was talking about him. There were quite a few times that she had voiced that he was an oopsie baby.
What does that mean?
I'm
sorry. What did you understand that to?
I understood it as
Your
just
Honor, objection as to speculation and also as to relevance.
Well, I guess I wonder how it is relevant.
I think if you're referring to a teenager still as an oopsie baby, I think it's relevant to what kind of relationship you had with him and what kind of, defense counsel's described her client in opening as hypervigilant. And so I think that the prosecution's entitled to
I think their relationship is relevant. When you say your definition of an oopsie baby, are you using your own definition of what that means or hers?
The feelings that I have gotten that she has not really talked
Your
about.
Honor, you're asking if it's her opinion. I'm sorry, she's going
She did,
into her
and I'll
opinion.
clear it up. We don't,
Okay.
unfortunately, your feelings about it are
Right.
not what's relevant here.
Correct.
But did she ever explain what that meant?
She never truly explained what that had meant.
Okay. How long of a drive is the barn from Oxford, the village of Oxford, if you know?
I would say about 20 minutes.
Okay. What is the way that you would communicate with Jennifer?
Usually through Facebook Messenger.
And do you know why that is that the way you prefer to communicate?
I don't really mind what way to communicate. It seems like Facebook Messenger is how a lot of people communicate nowadays.
Okay, does the barn have Wi-Fi?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so do you have problems communicating when you're at the barn?
It depends on how good the service wants to be at the barn.
Okay.
Some days it's really good, and then other days there's not great service.
All right. And I would assume most of the people at the barn, that's just people deal with that and they know that.
Yes.
Okay. Would you describe Jennifer, did you have a friendship or was it more just business?
It was mainly business. We had friendly talk, but I would not say that we were close friends.
When you buy a horse and it doesn't, it's not near where you are, how do you get it from like a different state to the barn?
Usually you can pay somebody to haul the horse over to the new location for you, or you can go pick it up if you have a trailer.
And do you know what was the second horse's name that was purchased?
Billy.
Billy. Do you know how he was brought to the barn?
He was shipped by someone that does a lot of cross-country hauling.
And do you remember about what month and year that was?
It was in the beginning of the year that she had gotten him, which I do not remember exactly when she had gotten him.
Did she get him before she came to your barn or after?
Before.
Okay. But so how did you know what was your relationship like then, before she was at the barn?
Before she was at my barn?
Yes, your relationship.
I would give her some lessons, and it was mainly business. And
Was she asking for advice about which horse to buy or how to buy the horse?
not a lot, but just kind of, just general questions of, what might work for a good horse for what she wanted to do.
Okay, I guess
with
what
the
I'm getting
horse.
at is how do you know how the horse was shipped?
Because she had told me about, where he was, that he was in a different state, and that she would just have him shipped.
Okay, do you know approximately how much that costs?
I do not. It varies on who you use to haul a horse, and then also just, the cost of, the fuel and mileage, and, everybody kind of has their own fees that they,
More than 500, less than 500?
most likely more than 500.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about the health concerns or issues with the two horses? Did they need a lot of extra care? Like, were they given a lot of extra care?
Given extra care by the vet.
By the Crumbleys, by Jennifer?
They would come out and the mud fever that we were dealing with, and they had put medication on Billy's legs for that. But there were some issues lameness wise with their newest horse, Billy, that they had still had to have the vet out for to diagnose what the problem was.
Were they on any other medications or supplements?
Supplements, yes. Medications, not that I know of.
What's the cost of supplements for a horse?
Well, it depends on what you want to have your horse on. I know that both Billy and Shorty were on a lot of supplements, and it probably cost over $100, probably close to $200 per month per horse.
All right, I'm going to draw your attention to November 30th, 2021. You remember that day?
Yes.
All right. What was the interaction you had with Jennifer Crumbley the day before that? So that was a Tuesday. Did you see her at the barn on Monday?
I do not remember. I think she was planning on coming out, but I don't remember exactly.
Okay. Did you have any communication with her that previous weekend?
The previous weekend before the 30th?
Yes, after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And do you remember what that was about?
I remember wanting to set up lessons. I don't remember exactly
Okay.
anything else.
In your Facebook communications, did Jennifer ever mention going to a shooting range that summer or leading up to that fall?
She had mentioned that she was going to, but I don't really remember a lot of
Okay.
that.
Was that in the summer or the fall?
I would believe summer and fall.
Okay. Were you aware that she, do you follow her on social media?
I do.
Did you see the post that she posted about buying her son a Christmas present?
I did.
All right. Did you discuss it with her?
I did not.
Did you see it before the shooting or after?
I do not remember. I'm on social media, but not very frequent.
Okay. So the morning of November 30th, what was going on with their horses?
Their horse Billy needed the medication from the vet to help treat his mud fever because we couldn't fix it with the products that we were trying before, and his legs were swollen.
Okay, what was being done about it?
There was some ointment that was given to them by the vet to put on his legs.
That morning?
I believe they picked it up from the vet to put on the legs, because I remember James wanting to bring the medication out and put it on Billy's legs.
Okay, so did James go to the barn that morning?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And do you know from like what time to what time?
It was in the morning, but I don't recall what time.
Okay, and were you having conversations over Facebook Messenger with Jennifer during that time about the vet?
Not really.
Okay. Did you speak with her about this mud fever frequently?
I had mentioned it to her because it's not normal for a horse's legs to swell up like his did. Was just a mild case of this mud fever. So we had to have a little bit more involvement of getting that taken care of by having an ointment made by the vet that took care of it.
Okay. Was Jennifer planning on coming to the barn that night?
Yes.
And do you remember why?
We were going to do a riding lesson.
Did she end up going to that lesson?
She did not.
Okay. There was a text sent at what's including in what's been previously admitted as exhibit 130, Your Honor.
1:30.
Can you read the top text there, and which one is you? Are you blue or black?
I am blue.
Okay, so can you read the text that you sent at, what does it say, 10:18 a.m. on the 30th?
Yes. Boys are needing supplements for tonight, and Shorty lost a bell boot again.
What's a bell boot?
It is it's like a rubber boot that goes over the horse's foot to help prevent. Well, we used it on Shorty for because he would rip his shoes off all the time. He had metal shoes on, and he would pull his shoes off. So if you put a bell boot on, it helps to reduce the chance of them pulling a shoe.
Okay, and you're telling her why?
I was telling her to have her bring out another boot to replace the one that he had torn off.
So it's her responsibility to do that?
Correct.
Okay. And she responds, can you read that text?
Okay, I'll bring some out later. Just had to go to my son's school and meet his counselor. Shit day.
All right, so she responds to you in about 20, 30 minutes.
Yes, it
Okay.
looks like it.
Okay. And then, is this continued on that same message? It's just another message at the same time? Or
Yes.
was it later? Okay, can you read that?
Yeah, I still plan on doing the lesson. Everything's okay. He's just having a hard time after losing Tank, his friend, going away to a treatment facility and who knows what else. But he was just caught drawing this on a math test or a math assignment today.
All right. And this is the worksheet that's been previously submitted, Your Honor. It's Exhibit 74. Is there a word for that?
Yeah.
One moment, Your Honor. While he's doing that, you're up. Did Jennifer ever participate in any shows or competitions?
She had done one show with us
And where was that?
at a farm right down the road.
Okay. Do you know if she ever traveled for competitions or horse shows?
Not to my knowledge outside of when I had taken the horse.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor? So this is Exhibit 74. And can you tell the jury what that is?
That is the math test that Jennifer had sent me that morning of what her son had drawn on the math test.
All right, and did you take a close look at it when she sent it to you?
I did look at it, but I did not open it as soon as she had sent it to me. I saw it later.
Okay. When? How much later?
I believe that it was before the shooting had occurred, but after the shooting had happened, I had looked at the math test even closer.
Okay, so this is important, so I want to make sure I ask the question in the right way. You took a look at it, and you remember that. Is there a reason why?
I remembered saying that he had needed horse therapy. And
Okay.
she should bring him out for some horse therapy.
All right. Okay, we're gonna get to that. Can you skip to the next slide? So this is from who? You or Jennifer?
This message was from Jennifer.
Can you read it, please?
As long as I can get out there early enough because I had to leave work for an hour and I have a meeting in Southfield at 3 o'clock, but I should be done with that by 4. I plan on being there, plus the vet said it's better for him to move around and keep it circulation going while he's dealing with mud fever. Good times.
Okay, so the first string I want to point out that you received from her about the lesson was 10:58. Do you remember? I'm sorry, yes. 10:58. Okay.
Yes.
And so this is all part of the same conversation?
Yes.
All right. And then the next text is from you, correct? Can you read that?
Yes. OMG, he needs some horse therapy. I bet he would love Mo. Whatever works for you, just let me know. I only have Bella's lesson tonight at 5:30, so anytime after her lesson is fine.
Okay, and her response?
Okay, yeah, well, he'll be coming with me tonight. James is working and he can't be left alone.
Next slide.
Does he want to ride?
And she responds,
I don't know. Maybe brush a small horse so he's not. It's there. Sorry.
oh, sorry, I had
Yeah,
the same problem.
no, I was trying to figure
Sorry.
out if there was more to that message there, but it was down. I don't know. Maybe brush a small horse so he's not intimidated. LOL.
And she responds?
I responded,
Oh.
Mo would be perfect. And she responded with, okay.
All right, and the next slide.
Make it a family event coming out to the barn. Really though, I've seen some amazing things done with horses with kids.
And at this point, you testified early, you hadn't ever seen him come to the barn.
Not to my farm, and I vaguely remember maybe seeing him once at the previous farm.
A few years prior?
Yes.
Okay. And her response?
He needs something.
And you responded, even though there seems to be a...
I can still read it. It
Okay.
says, let's make him a cowboy.
And
And then-
Jennifer responds,
LOL, mom goals for real.
all right. So that exchange ends, and then the next text you get from her, Facebook message, is at 2:36 p.m. that day.
Correct. And that says, here I will
Okay,
not.
hold on a second.
Okay.
What, when did you first hear about the shooting?
I had actually heard about the shooting when one of my students' moms had called me in that afternoon and said that they would not be out later for their lesson because of the shooting.
All right, and what was your first thought, Kira?
My first thought is that I knew who the shooter was by the math test that was sent to me.
All right, that's a heavy thing to think. Talk to me about why that was your first thought.
It's not normal for somebody to draw these things on a test in school or even really think about these things, especially in a school setting, but really ever.
Okay, so did you then go back and take another look at the worksheet?
Yes.
All right. Did you talk to anybody about this at the time?
I had talked to my parents. I had told them that I believed that I knew who the shooter was, and I explained why.
Okay. And at some point, when did you verify that it was in fact her son? Around what time, if you know?
I do not remember when I had verified that it was her son.
Okay, so let's go back to the text message at 2:36, and we know the shooting started at around 12:51. So this is almost an hour and a half after the shooting. She texts you what?
Kira, I won't be there tonight.
And you respond?
It's okay. Want me to work Billy for you?
And she says,
Yes, please.
okay, and talk to me about the next text and the picture.
It says just brought him in, and it's a picture of Billy.
All right. Did you text her photos or message her photos a lot of the horses?
I would send her pictures as I took them. I tried to be good about taking pictures of the horses.
Okay, and the next slide. This is at 4:07.
I said, hey, is everything okay? I heard there was a shooting at Oxford High School. Is Ethan okay?
And then at 4:21, you sent another text. Can you read
If
to
you
me?
need anything, please let me know. And then under that, oh no, that's the same
Okay.
message that's up there.
She responds at 4:42 and says what?
I need to sell my horse's stat.
And what did you respond to her?
I responded with, oh no, this was what I was worried about.
Okay, can I stop you there? What did you mean by that?
I had the feeling that her son was the shooter, and that with that the horses would most likely have to be sold.
Okay, but it doesn't say that, and you came to that conclusion. Oh no, this is what I was worried about because of some of the information outside of what she actually texted.
Correct.
Okay. And you say what about the horses?
I said, if you're serious, I will gladly buy Billy for sure. And then I asked how much, and she said I paid $5,000 for him.
Okay, about an hour and a half later, you respond. Oh no, no, 6:24. You say what?
I had said, do you want $5,000 for him, or do you want more?
In her response,
My head is spinning right now. Is 8 too much?
and she says,
I
You say-
said I would gladly give you 8 if I could afford it. I really only have $5,000 to spend. You could ask Angela if she would buy him for 8. Angela would probably buy him.
okay. Do you buy and sell horses a lot?
I do not.
Okay, have you bought a horse from somebody before?
I have bought horses before.
Okay, is that something that you normally do via check, cashier's check, cash?
It depends on the situation.
Your Honor, I would just object to relevance.
Your Honor, this is part of a lot of evidence we're introducing about going to flight and the need for actual cash.
I'm gonna allow it.
Thank you. So at 6:47, she messages you again. What does it say?
I won't have my cell phone.
And you respond,
Do what you need to do. I will take good care of your boys here.
and the next slide, she says what?
I can be reached through here. I do not have my cell phone currently on a track phone.
And that is still the 30th, but it's at 10:21 p.m.
Yes.
All right, and can you read what you responded?
Do you need me to do anything for you? I'm not sure you should. There.
We have a clean copies. I'm trying to find a paper copy that doesn't have that so prominent in it, so one moment. Okay, let's talk about this. Do you know where these, at some point did the law enforcement ask you if you communicated with Jennifer?
How do you mean that?
At some point, did you give the screenshots of these messages to law enforcement?
I did.
Okay. So part of the problem, these are screenshots. Do you know, is that correct?
Yes, they are screenshots.
Okay. I'm going to approach with the actual paper copy to see if maybe this is a little easier to read. It's just cut off, so I guess just do the best.
Yeah. I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure.
We'll clear it up because we have a
Okay.
complete. But
Yeah.
can you just read what you can understand?
On this next part, it says story being uncovered. Already seeing some stuff on Facebook. People are figuring out what's going on.
And she responds,
I'm off Facebook.
okay. And the next slide.
I'm still in shock. What did Angela post?
Okay, so that text that you couldn't read, do you remember? Was that about Angela?
I do not recall.
Okay. And she responds, you respond,
I said, can you receive pictures? I'll screenshot it. And she said, yes, I'm here. And then I sent her a screenshot.
do you remember what the screenshot, without reading exactly what it said, what the nature of it was?
The poster had been extremely frustrated and upset about what happened with the shooting.
Okay. And were there any threats in that screenshot?
I do not remember.
Okay, we'll pull it up. Hold on 1 second. Okay, all right, so the next time you text her at 10:45, can you tell Jerry what you said?
I cannot believe people on Facebook. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this stuff.
Okay, and because I know this is going to be something council wants to talk to you about, can you tell us what were you feeling at that moment when this was going on about Jennifer and the whole situation?
I was extremely upset about this situation.
Okay, can you give me a little more than extremely upset?
I didn't really know what to think. I couldn't believe that this had happened, and especially so close to, home. And I was concerned about what was going to happen in the future
Okay.
with just my farm in general.
And you at the time were how old?
That was
2 years ago.
2 years ago. I was 25.
All right. And were you feeling bad for Jennifer?
I did not truly feel bad for Jennifer. I was upset that this had happened to all of the kids and families, and I wanted to figure out how I could possibly get more information to help make sure that things were taken care of.
Okay, were there any students at Oxford that you gave lessons to or were at the barn? What is the community like there?
Yes, I give lessons to a few people from Oxford.
Okay. All right, the next slide. This is at 11 p.m. that night. Can you read your text?
Did you guys leave the medication for Billy's legs? If not, no worries. I'll just put my stuff on him.
And she responds,
I'll bring by tomorrow. We're in hotel in Lapeer. News live at our house.
and you respond.
No problem.
And then at 11:40 you say what?
Please stay safe.
Okay. Next slide. This is a screenshot that you sent or she sent?
She had sent me.
Okay. And she responded,
I can't go home.
okay. And did you read those?
What I could just from the screenshot.
Okay. Did you view those as threats to her life?
Your Honor, I would object as to her opinion.
Yes, sustain.
Okay. the text, the screenshot speaks for itself. Next slide. Okay, go ahead.
I'm concerned for you guys. You should stay.
All right, while we're getting a copy that actually is clear, why are you concerned? Why were you concerned? Let's just text us.
My concern was more for the sake of and here in that concern I am showing sympathy to hopefully figure out maybe more information on, like, you know, what is going to happen if they were going to try to come to my farm, or if people were going to show up.
What was the concern?
My concern about them coming to the farm, knowing about the situation that had just happened, is that they may steal things to sell to get money to pay for the.
Your Honor, I would object to this, about her thoughts and feelings about stealing. This is irrelevant and prejudicial.
She's a fact witness, ask for facts and fact questions.
Your Honor, she is most likely going to be asked by counsel to explain that she was worried about her safety, and so I'm asking her what she was really worried about. I'm happy to save it on to redirect though.
Okay.
Okay. And then she responds what?
I have my pets at home. I'm sorry, I don't want to put anyone at risk. I don't know what to do.
Okay, her pet's at home. Did you know anything about her pets?
I know that she had a dog, at least still, and I think she had a cat.
Okay. And this was still the night of the shooting?
Yes.
The next slide. And in fact, this is at 11:59 p.m. after she says, I'm concerned about my pets. What do you respond?
Best thing you can do is just be honest about things. I'm not sure, I'm wondering about even buying your horses, if that would drag me into this, or if you just sign them over to me.
Okay, and then there's content we have to clear up, but can you read the last sentence, or the two last sentences?
Two last sentences. I see people saying you're using money from the horses to get a better lawyer or something. People are ridiculous.
All right, next slide.
I'm selling my house too. Lawyer will cost every bit of $200,000, and I don't think that, I think it will be questioned. You won't get dragged in. And then I have responded with,
Safe to say you might have been worried you would be called to testify on a high, yeah. Okay, what is your?
most I can afford to pay is $5K. Farrier is coming out Thursday also.
And she responds,
That's fine, sold. And
okay,
then she had said, I'll sign Shorty over to you.
all right, next slide.
Okay, want to sign them over tomorrow. I can either write personal check or I can go get money order. I'm not sure I have the cash on me. Can see if they'll let me withdraw that much.
So do you keep that kind of cash at the barn with you?
No, I
right.
do not.
All right. And her response?
I'm bawling right now, Kira. My son ruined so many lives today.
Okay, so check your time. Is this all the 11:59, that whole string, if you know?
I do
Can you
not
look on the
know.
paper
It's
copy?
right around in that time. There's no time on this.
Do you see the time?
There's no time in those messages. The last time it shows where the time.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
The next, she says, I'm bawling. My son ruined so many lives today. And the next slide?
Then I so wish I could help you out more. I'm still in shock too. Take it one day at a time. Be honest about everything. It should help you guys through this.
And then you say, if you guys need anything, and I'll do what I can for you, and I'll take good care of the boys. Who are you talking about?
I am talking about both of their horses.
Okay. She responds,
I know you will.
and then your response?
Try to rest some, you'll need it. We can talk more tomorrow about the boys.
And she says what?
Okay, thanks for not judging unlike the whole world.
Okay, next slide.
I know you and James, and this doesn't even remotely make me think that it's your fault. It sounds like Ethan was a troubled kid. It's unfortunate this happened because he did ruin a lot of, and I,
What's that? Can you read the last few sentences?
yeah, the last few sentences of that, that message says, who knows, try to stay calm as and collected as you can.
Okay. I'm going to approach. This is the another copy, so you don't have to struggle with the.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's a lot bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hold on one moment, Your Honor. Okay, we're going to put up on the screen a better copy so that you don't have to sort of guess what you said in between sentences. One moment. Okay, so we've been over this. This is at, we'll start at 10:45. And can you go to scroll down? Okay, go back. So. All right, can you read that full message up from 11:44, the night of the shooting, that you wrote in blue?
I'm concerned for you guys. You should stay where you are. I'm concerned for you even coming out here. I don't want people finding out about your horses or hurting you while you are here.
Okay. And she responds,
I have my pets at home.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't want to put anyone at risk. I don't know what to do.
And you respond, again, rereading this because there's a line missing, go ahead.
Best thing you can do is just be honest about things. I'm not sure. I'm wondering about even buying your horses, if that would drag me into this, or if you just sign them over to me, if that would be better for both of us. I could see people saying you're using money from the horses to get a better lawyer or something. People are ridiculous.
Okay. And she responds, I'm selling my house too. We've already entered this. It's going to cost everybody $200,000, and I don't think it will be questioned. You shouldn't get dragged in. And then again, you we've read these texts, you said you don't have $5,000, or that's the most you can afford to pay, scrolling down. She agrees to that, and you tell her you don't know if you can withdraw $5,000, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right, can you read that text again and include that you sent her now that it's complete?
I so wish I could help you out more. I am still in shock too. Take it one day at a time. Be honest about everything. It should help you guys through this. Please let me know if you guys need anything and I'll do what I can for you. I'll take good care of the boys.
And she responds, I know you will. You say, try to get some rest. We can talk more tomorrow about the boys. And she says, okay, thanks for not judging us unlike the whole world. So what time is this? This is now the next day at 12:28 a.m.?
Yes.
All right. And go ahead and read that entire text that you're texting her into the early hours,
Yes.
correct? Okay, go ahead.
I know you and James, and this doesn't even remotely make me think it's your fault. It sounds like Ethan was a troubled kid. It's unfortunate this happened because he did ruin a lot of lives around him and his own. Everything will work out how it's supposed to. I feel everything happens for a reason. Maybe this happened to raise awareness. Who knows? Try to stay calm and collected as you can.
And then you had an amazing ride on Billy.
Yes.
Okay, and how does Jennifer respond?
I wish we had warnings, something. He's a good kid that made a terrible decision. I'm glad Billy, good, kills me to sell him.
Okay, did you know what she was talking about?
She was talking about not having
Your
more.
Honor, I would object to this witness's opinion. The texts speak for themselves.
I'm not asking her an opinion, Judge. I'm trying to ask her if there was any.
The topic of the conversation?
Yes.
Um,
Did she? What I'm trying to ask, Judge, is did she have any context for this about warnings?
Okay. Yeah, she'd have
Without
to,
saying what.
she'd have to have personal knowledge.
Right. I was trying to get to that actually. Did you have any information from before she sent you the text about warnings, about what that meant? Not just what you perceived it as, but did you have any information she had provided earlier about warnings?
just information of not really talking about her child much, and that he was troubled.
Okay. So you don't know, other than the worksheet
Yeah.
she texted you. Did you that day? Did she say anything about warnings?
No, she
Okay.
did not.
All right, and you respond.
There probably were warnings, but nobody saw them. Hindsight is always 20/20. I absolutely adore Billy.
Okay, and the next.
A lot of people have found out, I guess Ethan is all over Facebook. People at the barn are concerned. I think it would be best if you didn't come out to the barn, or if you do, just you must be escorted by the police. I'm really sorry. I'm looking out for my business here too.
All right, and what were you testified earlier you were worried about theft, but what were you worried about? Is there anything else that you were worried about at that point?
I was also worried about just the safety of my other boarders. I do have people that I give lessons to that do go to Oxford, and they did not want to be around if Jennifer and James would come to the farm.
Okay, and she responds to you. This is then the next day after the shooting. It's around 9:56 a.m. What does she respond?
Seriously, those horses are the only thing that is good in my life right now. And I responded with, I 100% understand that, but we all need to be careful. What if people follow you here?
Okay, the next messages indicate that it says Kira missed your call. Is there a way to call through Facebook messenger that doesn't include, it's not a cell phone call? Are those two different things, if you know?
Yes.
Okay. And had you received Facebook calls from Jennifer before?
She has attempted to call
Okay.
Facebook before.
And you didn't pick up?
I did not.
Is there a reason for that?
I do not remember what I was doing at that time.
Okay, and the next message?
Call me on Facebook, on track phone, need to talk and figure some things out.
And what is your response?
Sorry, I missed your call. I'm still doing some stuff and can't do a phone call until later on.
And then you say, can you message me?
Oh yeah.
Communicate that way. Correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, next message? She says what?
Let's talk later, easier than texting. This phone is hard to text on.
And now your response is, now this is 3 o'clock, the day after the shooting, you respond what?
Alright, no problem. I'll let you know later today.
And then you text her again that night at around 8 p.m.?
If you're comfortable coming out here without police, I'm okay with it too. We just need to be careful. I don't want people to follow you or hurt you.
Okay, Kira, it seems as if you're changing your mind here and you're not exactly sure how to handle it. What's going on with that text? Because that's opposite of what you said earlier.
Your Honor, I would object to the narrative being provided by the prosecution and ask that she just ask questions.
Okay, well, I think she is. She's asking, did you change your mind?
I had changed my mind to allow her to come to the farm, but in my head, if she did decide to come to the farm, I would still have, my parents were there and just making sure that things were still safe.
Okay, and were you continuing to talk to other people like your parents during this time about what to do? Or were you pretty set?
I had talked to my parents.
Okay. What is her response shortly after that? That's still 8:12 p.m.
We're out of the area for a few days in a safe place until we have a better grasp on everything.
Okay, and the next message you send?
I am very glad you are safe. I care about you guys. I will take care of your boys. Let me know when you want me to buy them and I'll buy them.
And then you also add, if you need anything else, could just let me know?
Yes.
All right. And the next message she sends is about an hour or so later at 9 p.m. And what does she say?
I'm sorry, my keyboard sucks. Let's plan on Monday to sail.
Okay. And at this time, December 1st would be a Wednesday,
Yeah,
if you know.
I think. I'm not good with dates.
Okay. And so Monday is 4 or 5 days later.
Yes.
Okay. And then you respond, okay, sounds good. Is there a way for me to get the medication for his legs before then? Who are you talking about, Billy?
I was talking about Billy because
Okay.
he had the medication that was being used to treat his fever.
The mud fever?
Yes.
All right. And then she responds,
What's your number? I want to call and set up a safe place to meet. My messenger is probably being monitored. And
okay, she's telling you at 9:30 on Wednesday night, my messenger is probably being monitored. What did you take that to mean? What messenger?
She is referring to the Facebook Messenger.
So you monitored meaning that the messages you're sending are being monitored.
Correct.
Did you know who was monitoring them?
I did not.
Okay. And then she says what?
She says, hey, we need to get that stuff to you and discuss the horses.
Okay, so this is the following day at 12:49. She says we need to get that stuff and discuss the horses. And how do you respond?
My response.
Who's Truman?
Truman is our farrier that we use.
Your what?
Our farrier.
Okay. Were Billy and Shorty having a farrier visit?
Yes.
Okay. And that was arranged by who?
Me. All the horses get done at the same time.
Okay. So you say Truman's here right now. I can let you know when he's done. And you say I'll message you when I'm done.
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Said, hey, I'm sorry, can we do call tomorrow morning?
okay, were you trying to avoid a conversation or you were just busy?
Both.
Okay, fair, all right, and the next message comes in, December 2nd. Yep, can we still sell the horses tomorrow?
Yeah.
And you respond, this is at 10:56 p.m. You respond what?
I think so. Want me to have cash or check?
And how does she respond?
Cash is best.
And you respond what?
What do you want to do with your tack?
And what's tack?
Like the saddles and bridles for the
Okay.
horses.
And she says sell it?
Yes.
Okay, now this is December 3rd at 7:19 a.m., correct?
Yeah.
Is that what it says?
That's that message on there.
Okay, that's UTC -5, so that is the actual time. That's 7:19 a.m. And that is
Yeah.
December 3rd. And you respond what?
I can probably give you $800 for it all if you want. Are you able to meet today still?
Okay, and that is do you know if that was Friday?
I do not remember.
Okay, no worries. And her response is what?
Her response was maybe. They're announcing charges at 12, so not sure what's happening.
Okay, so that is, if I told you that was a Friday, do you have every reason to disagree with that? December 3rd.
I do not know the actual date that day.
Okay,
I cannot
so
say.
do you know what she's talking about? Charges? Did you have any clue as to what that was about? Just yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. From okay, and you respond at 11 a.m. shortly, about 45 minutes after. Just let me know and we can figure something out. Do you have the papers for the boys? Is that like ownership papers?
Registration papers, because
Gotcha.
both of the horses are registered.
And then you follow up saying what?
If you will take $5,800 for horses and all the tack and stuff included, I'll go get the money today, so I have it ready when you are ready.
Okay, and she responds, yes, and Brian will contact you. Papers are at my house. Brian's a mutual friend that you both know?
We both know him.
Okay, that's
Jennifer's closer to
Okay.
him than I am.
Thank you. And you respond, did you find a place for your other animals? Were you talking about her pets at home?
Yes.
Okay. And she says, not yet. This is at 2 p.m. And then you respond, I can find them good homes with my family members if you want. And that's around 2 p.m. as well. Is that the last message you sent or had exchanged with her?
I do not know if that's the last time that I talked to her with this.
Okay. Did you give all of the messages on that day, the screenshots to law enforcement that you had?
I did, yes.
Okay. Where are what happened to the horses? Did she end up, did you buy them?
I did not buy them. They were actually signed over to me. Part of our boarding contract is if payment is not made after a certain number of days or months, then the horses become the property of the facility to cover the costs of having them boarded.
Okay, and you were making those arrangements with somebody else other than Jennifer?
Jennifer's dad.
Okay, all right. Nothing further at this time.
Ross?
Thank you. Good afternoon, or morning, good morning. My name is Shannon Smith. I represent Mrs. Crumbley. I believe that I've met you once before when you testified in court at the preliminary exam. Do you recall that?
I do.
If I ask you any questions that are at all confusing, can you please stop me and let me know?
I will.
Okay, thank you. I want to start off by talking about your relationship with Jennifer Crumbley. You testified today that you had a business relationship with her. Is that correct?
It was a business relationship, but also a friendship, but we were not super close friends.
Okay, so you would agree that at the time prior to November 30th of 2021, Jennifer Crumbley was also a friend to you. Not particularly close, but a friend.
Correct.
And the farm that you own, do you call it a farm or a barn?
It's both.
Okay, I keep using the word interchangeably, so I thought I'd
Yep,
ask.
either works.
The property you own is approximately 51 acres, is that correct?
Correct.
And it's fair to say that to get to your property, there are long roads in a very rural area, is that correct?
Yes.
So your farm is not right up against cities or areas with a lot of traffic, correct?
Correct.
On those roads that are close to the farm, it's fair to say the cell signal cuts in and out for different cell phones.
Correct.
And you personally, at the time all of this took place, had a phone through Verizon Wireless, correct?
Correct.
And you would be able to use your Verizon phone while at the farm.
For the most part, depending on the area and also just the day.
So there were some parts of the farm or parts of the day where you would also have trouble getting a signal to make phone calls or send text messages, correct?
Correct.
And you know from the other people who board and come to the farm that other people also have internet issues and are unable to receive calls and texts while at the barn.
Yes, sometimes people would struggle with that.
It sounds like there's one little area by a picnic table where people kind of flock if they want to check their texts or get data. Is that correct?
It very well could be. There are a couple areas that seem to maybe be a little bit more reliable service-wise, but even then, like sometimes if it's too windy, things don't work.
Now, you testified that Jennifer Crumbley gave you information that her son was weird, although she talked about vacations and some other things with him. Is that true?
Correct.
And you testified that you had concerns about her son prior to the events that unfolded on November 30th, correct?
I have not voiced to her that I had seen concerns, but in my mind I had thought that, you know, some of the things that she had described or how she didn't really talk about him much, or if, you know, when she had talked about him, it was very vague. Like, people like to talk about their children, and she did not talk about her
Margaret, just,
children.
one moment, and whatever's on the screen is not an exhibit, and so
Do I just go ahead and turn this off?
What's the button there?
There's a button for it to go and use.
Should I just pull my plug out?
I don't know, is this yours or
Yes.
is this yours?
Yeah, this is my
Oh, okay.
laptop.
Oh,
I didn't realize it was turned on to my laptop, so my desktop was evidently up there. Okay, so Miss Pennick, when you, so you've testified obviously here today, but you recall testifying at a preliminary exam that took place back in 2022, correct?
Yes.
And on the day you testified in 2022 at the preliminary exam, you did the same thing we saw here in court. You raised your right hand and swore to tell the truth, correct?
Correct.
And on that date, you did your best to take the stand and tell the truth about your knowledge of the information in this case.
Correct.
Now, on that date when you testified, you were specifically asked, have you ever been given reason to believe he was not mentally sound, that he needed professional, medical help? And your answer was no on that occasion, correct?
Correct.
You were also asked, have you ever had reason to believe the shooter was homicidal or he would hurt other people? And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
Now, today you testified that the shooter, you were told about issues related to the shooter and him being weird, correct?
Correct.
You testified about that issue at the preliminary exam, and I'm on page 55, and you were asked, when you said that,
Objection, Your Honor, you're on page 55 of what?
the preliminary exam.
So the witness doesn't have that, and I think she doesn't have it.
This is impeachment.
Right, but she's referencing a page number to something that nobody else
Oh, I
has.
think she was referencing the page number so that you know where she is.
Right.
In the exhibit.
Okay, it's not an exhibit, so I'm just wondering if we're gonna refer to certain things that she said that she be allowed to also see that before she answers.
Well, I think she said, if she doesn't remember, if she doesn't recall, right?
Otherwise, with impeachment, I don't need to put the,
Yeah, so ask her if she recalls being asked a certain question.
okay. At the preliminary exam, you testified about whether James and Jen had issues with their son.
Do you recall that?
I recall.
And on that date, you said, I had never gotten the feeling that Jen and James had those types of issues with their son, correct?
Correct. I did not know if there were specific issues. Just some of their behaviors that they, or comments that they had made, indirect comments, made me think that there may have been issues at some point.
So it's your testimony today that you thought there may have been issues, but when you were asked under oath and testified in 2022, you specifically said, I had never gotten the feeling that Jen and James had those types of issues with their son.
I did not know. I don't have any paper proof or documentations of conversations to know for sure, so they're just my feelings.
Okay, I'm not asking if you have documentations or proof. I am just saying that on that date in 2022, which was closer in time to the events in this case, your testimony, sworn testimony, was that James and Jen did not have those issues with their son, correct?
Correct.
Now, when the math drawing was sent over to you by Mrs. Crumbley, the math paper her son wrote on, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. You ultimately saw that math paper, and you would agree with me that Jennifer appeared very concerned about what was going on, correct?
She had stated that she was concerned.
Okay. So she sends you the math paper and expresses concern.
Yes.
Now, you testified that when you heard there was a shooting at Oxford High School, you knew who the shooter was, correct?
My feeling with the information that I was given before I had actually seen it on the news, and who the shooter actually was, I had my feelings about who the shooter was.
So you did not believe that the shooter would have committed a school shooting based on the math paper alone, correct?
I do not know for sure.
If you saw that math paper and thought there would be a school shooting, you would have told someone, correct?
I cannot predict the future that there would have been a shooting, but I was very concerned about the sheet, the math test that was sent to me, and I did talk to my parents about the math test that I was shown, and my understanding is that with Jennifer and James meeting with the school that this was discussed.
Okay, we can agree that after the meeting about the math paper, Jennifer was concerned. We already went through that, yes?
Yes,
We can agree that she sent you a picture of the math paper and you also felt concerned, correct?
correct,
And we can agree that you did not call law enforcement or police to say, hey, I think a school shooting is going to unfold, correct?
correct,
At the time you saw the math paper and were concerned, you would have stopped a school shooting if you predicted it was going to happen, correct?
I would not have known that something like this would have happened.
You wouldn't have thought something like this would happen, correct?
Correct,
What ended up happening was horrible, correct?
correct,
And it was not anything that you expected, even, correct?
correct,
So when you are telling the jury that you hear about the shooting and you're thinking about the math paper, you know it's at Oxford High School, your testimony was you had an idea of who the shooter was, correct?
correct,
In order to reach that conclusion at that time, you had to rely on hindsight, looking backwards at things that you believed supported Jennifer's son may be the shooter, correct?
yes. The only thing that the thing that made me believe that I knew who the shooter was realizing the math test that was sent to me that morning.
Right,
So
so-
after the shooting happened, I had a feeling of who the shooter was because of the math test that was sent to me that morning.
Okay, so it's looking backwards, connecting the dots of things you see that were of concern, and knowing the shooting happened, that helps you put it together who the shooter is.
Correct,
But again, if you saw that math paper and had known or had a crystal ball and knew the shooting was going to unfold, you would have certainly called police or done something to stop it.
absolutely,
You also would have said to Mrs. Crumbley, hey, I think your son is going to do something to hurt people, correct?
correct,
Or, hey, I think your son might do something to hurt himself.
correct,
And it's fair to say that you did not send Mrs. Crumbley messages along those lines.
correct,
Now, you testified that you were being kind to Mrs. Crumbley. I don't believe you used the word being kind, but I characterize it as kind. When you said to her, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this, text messages along those lines that have been admitted, correct?
correct,
And you are aware that Mrs. Crumbley from the text messages was saying she can't go home,
correct,
and you were expressing concern for her in response to her saying, I can't go home.
correct,
We can agree there was a strong public opinion against the Crumbleys that you were aware of.
correct,
Many people were very angry with the Crumbley parents when they knew the Crumbley parents were the parents of the shooter.
correct,
So one of Mrs. Crumbley's concerns that was discussed in these texts with you were for her safety and the safety of her husband.
correct,
And that poured over onto you as well. As the barn owner, you needed to be concerned about your affiliation with the Crumbleys.
Correct.
And you needed to be concerned to make sure that you were not specifically harmed by anyone for being affiliated with them, correct?
I wanted to make sure that myself, my family, and my Barn family were also safe.
Well, that was going to be my next question. You were concerned about yourself, and I'm sorry, you said your family.
My close family, and then also what we call a Barn family, or people that are boarded at my facility.
Thank you. And that's why you made indications to Mrs. Crumbley about not coming to the barn or only coming with a police escort, because you were watching out for what you needed to protect, which is yourself, the people you care about, and your boarders.
Correct.
When you write to Mrs. Crumbley in the texts that were admitted, please stay safe, you genuinely wanted Mrs. Crumbley to stay safe.
Correct.
And Mrs. Crumbley was explaining that she can't go home. Those texts speak for themselves.
Correct.
And Mrs. Crumbley ultimately says that they are staying out of town for a few days.
Correct.
And it's your understanding they were not returning back to their home address.
Correct.
In the text, you say to Mrs. Crumbley, you give her some advice to be honest about everything, correct?
Correct.
At no point, there is no point where Mrs. Crumbley says to you, hey, I'm going to lie about this, correct?
Correct.
There's no point where she says, Kara, please take my side and lie about anything, correct?
Correct.
When you're giving her the advice to tell the truth, she's not saying to you, I'm not planning to do that, right?
Correct.
And in your texts, you confirm to Mrs. Crumbley that you don't remotely think it's Jen and James' fault that the shooter did this, correct?
I did put that in the text message, correct.
And then Mrs. Crumbley responds that she wishes there had been warnings, correct?
Correct.
And when you text her back, you say there probably were, but nobody saw them, right?
I did have that in my message, correct.
And if you had seen warnings that the shooter would do something like he did, you certainly would have voiced that to Mrs. Crumbley.
Your Honor, I believe she's been asked that question a couple of times.
Well, I think she asked if you saw that picture in People's 74, would you have called the police and said there's a mass shooting, there's going to be a mass shooting? So I think the question is somewhat different.
I believe she also asked her if you would have said something to Mrs. Crumbley, I'm concerned.
Did she ask you that already?
Yes, a variation.
I did ask that, but then further down in the text messages, the conversation shifts, and the conversation is specifically, again, about signs and warnings, and so that's why I'm asking this witness a question about it again.
Okay.
Only because it reappears.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you never said to Jennifer Crumbley, when you two were discussing the word warnings, hey, I think there were warnings, correct?
Can you rephrase that?
You did not say to Mrs. Crumbley, when you guys were talking about her wishing there were warnings, you didn't say, Jennifer, there were warnings.
That is correct, because
That's just my question. You
Okay.
did not say, Jennifer, there were warnings.
correct.
And in fact, you continued to go on to be kind to Mrs. Crumbley and continue working out the terms of buying this horse, correct?
Correct.
And you continued to be concerned and telling Mrs. Crumbley, stay where you are, and that you didn't want people hurting them, correct?
Correct.
When Mrs. Crumbley was commenting to you about a lawyer costing $200,000. You understood she was trying to gather money together to pay a lawyer, retain a lawyer.
Correct.
And at that point, the shooting by the shooter had taken place, correct?
Correct.
And you do not know who the lawyer was for that Mrs. Crumbley was going to be thinking about paying $200,000 to, correct?
I did not know for sure.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
Ms. Pennick, in light of your testimony, I just want to confirm, you have never suspected that Jennifer Crumbley has stolen anything from you, correct?
No.
You've never filed a police report or made that kind of claim to Mrs. Crumbley or anyone, correct?
No.
Thank you.
Redirect?
Kira, did you have any trouble receiving and sending Facebook messages that day when you, in the thread that I had you read?
I do not remember.
Okay, but you successfully communicated with her?
Correct.
Okay. Counsel asked you a couple times about text messages you sent Jennifer, and you wanted to explain. You said, that's what I wrote in the text. And you, what do you mean when you say that?
A lot of the messages that I had sent, I wanted to send them in a way that I could possibly gain more information to provide to the law and get this situation taken care of.
Okay. Did you have any other concerns about being in a confrontation or a fight?
Not directly with them.
Okay. And she just asked you about concerns about theft, and you said no, you didn't prior to this, so why were you concerned about it now?
I was concerned because when somebody needs a lot of money and then they're in a tight spot with something like this case, that they may do things that they may not have ever thought about doing, and one of those things was stealing things to sell for money to cover the expenses of things that might need to be covered.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor. May she be excused?
Yeah, you can step down in your excuse. Who is the next witness and what would their duration on the stand be if we know all signers?
Mr. Hopkins, we won't finish before lunch if that's what the court's asking.
Are you guys good? We waited a long time this morning. Can we call another witness and then I think your lunch will be here at 12-ish. We'll start another witness, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're bringing him from down
Okay. No, no, no,
Oh,
no, not at all. We're waiting,
oh,
we're waiting
sorry,
for
okay.
Mr. Hopkins is being escorted here, so,
Okay.
yeah.
You can call Sean Hopkins, Judge.
Mr. Hopkins, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please be seated. And then would you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Sean Hopkins, SHAWN, last name HOPKINS.
May I, Judge?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, did you work with the Oxford High School in November of 2021?
I did.
Okay. And what did you do there?
I was a counselor at the high school.
Do you still work with Oxford School District?
I am currently on leave through the end of the school year.
Okay. So you said you were a counselor. What exactly does that mean?
As a counselor, I oversaw my caseload of students. I had approximately 400 students while at Oxford High School. I helped them with post-secondary planning, scheduling. I helped them also with social emotional issues and really kind of working with them holistically throughout their time in school.
Okay, so you said you had about 400 students in your caseload, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so how many students, if you know, attended Oxford High School in November of 2021?
I believe it was around either 1750, 1800.
Okay, so how many counselors were there?
There were 4 counselors with main caseloads, and then we had a counselor who had early college students.
Okay, so the 4, you call them main counselors, would they have a similar type of caseload?
Yep, we were divided out alphabetically, so we each took about an equal amount of students.
Okay. So you described a few different duties. Did you have any primary responsibilities as a counselor, or did you sort of have a lot of different responsibilities?
I would call it a lot of different responsibilities that were all primary.
Okay.
I don't know that there was one that we would put above the other that I described.
So in your general caseload, did you have regular meetings with students, or was it as an as-needed basis?
Both, actually. We did have a couple meetings per year that were scheduled, especially with seniors. We would meet with them regularly, and then we would meet once per year to go over scheduling and making sure that students were getting everything they needed for graduation, and then on an as-needed basis for any students.
Okay. So tell me about your background, please.
Well, I graduated from college in 2009, actually started as a youth pastor, worked in that role for from 2009 to 2018. I actually crossed over some with my time in the schools. I graduated with a master's in counseling from Oakland University in 2015, served the 2014-2015 school year as an intern at Oxford High School, and then was hired on full-time after that.
Okay, is that where you had been employed up until, from that point up until the time you went on leave?
No, I was at Oxford Bridges High School for the 2022-23 school year.
Okay, what is that?
That's the alternative high school within the Oxford Schools District for students who are credit deficient and at risk for graduation because of their credits.
Okay, thank you. So, did any of your responsibilities as a counselor at the high school involve disciplining students?
They did not.
Okay, so who would handle that?
That would have been the dean or principals.
Okay. So, November of 2021, Oxford High School, at that point, were students still masked?
They were.
Okay. Was it in-person learning, or was it hybrid, or was it remote?
It was primarily in person. We did have times when we were unable to stay in person due to amount of students out with COVID tracing.
Okay, so it was in person whenever possible. Would that be
Yes.
correct? Okay. Now, what sort of issues would arise with the students in your caseload in the fall of 2021?
It was a difficult time. Looking back on it, it was a time when, you know, it was a lot unknown for students, especially if they would be quarantined at times. You were working with them, making sure they were able to stay caught up. We actually had they were able to keep students engaged even when they were out. So it was difficult from a scholastic standpoint, which in a lot of ways led to it becoming difficult from an emotional standpoint for students, where it just became, the unknown can be difficult sometimes.
What sort of mental health struggles would you see around that time?
We saw a lot of depression, anxiety, students struggling, and we saw suicide ideation and unfortunately suicide attempts during that time.
Tell us, please, what exactly does suicide ideation mean?
It's a difficult one to define for a lot of people, but really what suicide ideation is are themes or things which may be related to suicide. So we could see sadness, which in itself isn't suicidal, or we could see depression, which in itself isn't suicidal. But when we see these themes together, sometimes they can be linked with suicide.
Okay. In November of 2021, as well as the previous school year, was Jennifer Crumbley's son one of the students assigned to your caseload?
He was.
Okay. When would have been the first time you interacted with Jennifer Crumbley's son?
To my memory, the first time would have been in the fall of the 2021 school year.
Okay, so what purpose would you have interacted with him then? You would have been a freshman at the high school?
Well, I do know that there have been things I interacted with him as a freshman, but I don't have memory of those. We would have done scheduling, we would have done just normal routine things, but I don't have a memory of that.
So when you say scheduling, you mean scheduling classes?
Yeah,
Okay, so that was one of your responsibilities as well?
it was.
Okay. Now, first of all, is Jennifer Crumbley in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is.
Can you point here and describe something she's wearing today, please?
She is to my right, wearing a black jacket.
Your Honor, with the record reflected identification.
The record would reflect the in-court identification of the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley.
So in the defendant's son's freshman year, that's the fall of 2020 into early parts of 21, do you have any recollection of interacting with him?
I don't.
Okay. Now, did you interact with him in the, if I showed you an email, would it refresh your recollection if you met with him in the spring of 2021?
I have seen this email. I don't have memory of the meeting, but it's been documented.
Okay. This is exhibit, I don't believe we have an objection to exhibits 155 through 160.
I'm sorry, let me just double check here. That's correct, 155 through 160 are fine.
You don't have an objection to any of those?
No.
Okay, 155 through 160 are admitted.
Mr. Hopkins, I'm going to direct you to the screen right in front of you. This is exhibit 155. Portions obviously are redacted. This is a copy of an email. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. It's sent from a staff member of Oxford High School?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, please, it was addressed to you May 13, 2021, 1:46 p.m.?
That is correct.
Okay. What does the email say?
It says, "Hi, when you get a chance, can you call redacted down and see how he's doing? He's failing my class and tries to sleep all the time in class."
Okay, so this was in reference to the defendant's son.
That is correct.
This is a portion of the same email thread, also May 13, 2021. This is 2:07 p.m. And what was your response?
It says, "I'll catch him before the end of the day."
Okay. And then did that staff member respond to you?
Yes.
And what was that?
Thanks. Just a little worried.
Okay. Now, do you recall having a conversation with the defendant's son in May of 2021?
I do not recall this meeting.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's 156. This is, remember, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. September the 8th, 2021, 8:23 a.m. This is an email from a different teacher to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you read us, please, what the email says?
"Hi, Sean. Could you please touch base with student? In his autobiography poem, he said he feels terrible and that his family is a mistake. Unusual responses for sure."
Okay. Did you respond to that email?
I believe I did.
Okay, so this is your response, September the 8th, 2021, 9:15 a.m. What is your response?
"Thanks for the heads up. I'm in senior meetings throughout the day, but we'll try and catch up with him."
Now, do you recall that interaction with the defendant's son?
In this case, I did not have a direct interaction with the defendant's son. I talked with the teacher.
Okay, and tell us about that, please.
I had a conversation with the teacher, and she explained to me a little bit more context of what had gone on. She explained that he was
Your
joking.
Honor, I would object to the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, sir, the judge, just to offer what he did next and why.
Okay, so what did you do next?
So I had a conversation with the teacher who gave me greater context of what was going on within this. And she stated that he was actually...
Your Honor, I would object
I
to
don't think it was clear to him.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Based on your conversation with the teacher, what did you do next?
Did you?
I did
Call
not
or
have a
email?
meeting. I did not have a meeting with the student
Okay.
at this time.
And did you send an email to either the defendant or her husband, or a phone call to either the defendant or her husband?
I did not.
Okay, that's all, sir. Now, in Oxford High School, are grades posted so parents can follow along?
They are.
Okay, and what system is that?
That is through a system called Power School.
Okay.
They are given live updates through that system.
And that's every parent of every student registered in Oxford School District that can follow along with assignments and things of that nature.
Yes.
And our parents also provided emailed updates to Power School.
I believe that they can get notifications through the Power School system.
And that's sent to email?
I'm not sure.
If you
how that is
know,
done.
if you know, that's all right. All right. Now, this was September the 8th, 2021. I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 157. Now, this is November the 10th, 2021 at 2:45 p.m. This is an email to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you tell us what this says, please?
Student is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
Okay. And then your response at 4:44 p.m. on November the 10th, 2021 was what?
I'm sorry, I was in a meeting through the end of the day. I'll catch up with him.
Okay. And did you catch up with him?
I did the following day.
Okay. Tell us about that, please.
I had a quick meeting in the hallway on his way to class and just let him know that if he needed somebody to talk to, that I could be there for him.
Okay. Now, did you contact either that student's mother or father at that point?
I did not.
Okay. Did you send an email?
No.
And why not?
Because it was something that was very typical. I didn't have any information on the student other than he was sad, which to me is a pretty common thing and a normal thing. And I just wanted to be able to offer a bridge that if that student wanted to talk.
Okay. And you offered that bridge to the student?
I did meet with that student in the hallway and offered that opportunity.
Okay. For the record, that was Jennifer Crumbley's son. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, the next time you had any interaction with the defendant's son was November the 29th, 2021. Would that be right?
Yes.
This is Exhibit 158. Sir, this is an email to you that eventually was forwarded, is that correct?
This email was eventually forwarded to me fairly quickly after it was sent to the two on this email.
Okay, so this is Monday, November 29th, 9:32 a.m. Can you read us please what the email says?
I have a student during first hour today, defendant's son, who is on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of first hour today as I was walking around the room passing out their essays. I didn't get a chance to investigate it a bit further since it was the end of the hour. Now that he's on my radar, I'm also noticing some of his previous work that he's completed from earlier in the year leans a bit toward the violent side. I can bring these things later today during my 5th hour prep if you would like them.
Okay, so this was 9:32 a.m. and you weren't on the initial email, but it was forwarded to you.
It was forwarded to me.
Okay, and tell us what happened next, please.
At this point, I received a phone call from Pam Fine, who was on the original email, asking if I would be able to come to her office. She was planning to call down the student and meet to discuss the contents of this email.
Now, in the realm of either a school counselor or someone who's in discipline of students, there are certain levels of escalation when it comes to contacting a student and or a parent. Would that be right?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. So there's a check-in.
Your Honor, I would ask that the witness answer the questions and avoid the leading questions.
Please.
I'll rephrase. Okay, so earlier you testified that you had just met with the student's teacher in September of 2021.
Yes,
Okay, and you felt that was sufficient at that point.
yes, because I was able to gain more context.
Okay. November the 10th of 2000, well actually you met with him November the 11th, 2021, you took the next step to meet with him.
Yes,
Okay. And now a decision was made, you just testified that to actually bring the student into the office.
that decision was made. I was not the one who made that decision.
Sure. But as far as you're concerned in your role, what are the levels of escalation to contact either a parent or somebody else?
It depends on the situation. If it's a discipline issue, I'd be contacting a dean or a principal. And then they would be the ones leading the meeting from there. If it's a social emotional issue, or if I feel the student is at risk of harm to themselves, I would be contacting a parent in that case.
Okay. So you said it was Pam Fine who was on that initial email, and what was her role at Oxford High School?
She was a restorative practices coordinator at that time.
So tell me what happened after you received that phone call.
I walked to Pam Fine's office, and the student had been called down and then walked into her office.
Okay, the student being the defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that meeting.
It was fairly brief. I was there as student support throughout the meeting, not to have direct conversation about the content of the meeting, but it was really a chance to get an idea of what he was looking at and why.
Okay. When you said you were there for the standpoint of student support, what does that mean?
Well, when a student is facing a potential discipline issue, it's fairly common to call a counselor in, as we are not the ones issuing the discipline in that case, but we can be a person there who's in the corner for the student.
So is that intentional to keep the discipline separate from the counselor?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because the counselor is not a role of disciplinarian, the counselor is a role of student support.
So your focus then would be on the mental health and well-being of the student, not if the school rule was violated.
That is correct.
You said the meeting was fairly short.
It was less than 10 minutes.
Okay. Was a decision made to take the next step to contact a parent?
There was a phone call to the parent after the meeting.
Okay, now, do you know how that decision was made and why?
I do not know how that decision was made or why.
Okay. Were you there for that phone call?
I was.
And it was a voicemail?
It was a voicemail.
Okay. And who made it? You or Ms. Fine?
Ms. Fine is the one who made the phone call.
Now, when was the next time you had any interaction? Well, first we'll go through the rest of 158 here. It'll be on your screen.
Okay.
This is when it was the email forwarded to you at 9:34. Can you read this email, please?
I sent the following email to Nick and Pam. I wanted to make you aware as well. I'm not sure if you had any contact with this student.
Okay, now who's Nick?
Nick was a dean of students at Oxford High School at the time.
Okay. And 9:36 a.m., you responded to the email. What did you write?
Thanks, Jacqueline. I'll be touching base with him as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, when is the next time that you had contact with the defendant's son?
It would have been the following morning of November 30th.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as 159. This is also an email. This is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 at 8:05 a.m. And you were on this initial email, correct?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell us what the email says, please?
I know Jackie emailed you guys yesterday with some concerns about student in our first hour class. Today he is watching videos on his phone of a guy gunning down people. It looks like it's a movie scene and not security footage / a real event, but definitely still concerning when taking into account some of his other behaviors.
Okay, so this email was sent at 8:05 a.m. the morning of the shooting. What
Yes.
time did you receive it?
Well, I received it at 8:05. I believe I responded and saw it about 30 minutes later,
I'm sorry, that was a bad question. What, if you recall, what time did you actually read it?
around 8:30.
Okay. What was your reaction when you read the email?
My first reaction was, here we go again, of another conversation of you have to follow school rules, you have to be able to make decisions that aren't going to be detrimental to your time in class.
Okay. Now, did you receive, subsequently you met with that student, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but before you did you receive another email regarding him?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, well, did you receive another email regarding the defendant's son that day?
I did, but it was, what happened was a math teacher showed a picture to our dean of students, Nikki.
Okay, so I'm going to show you 160, what's been admitted.
Okay.
This is from a teacher to you and Mr. Ejak, who references the dean of students.
Yes.
This was sent 9:32 a.m. and this was a photograph of a drawing by the defendant's son.
Yes, this was sent after I already had defendant's son in my office.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit then. You looked at the first email around 8:30 in the morning, you said?
Yes.
Okay, and then what decision did you make and why?
I was on the phone when I saw the email, and upon hanging up the phone, I actually had Mr. Ejak come to my office.
Why is that?
Because he had been shown the math assignment, which is attached in the email currently on the screen.
Okay, and then tell me about that conversation.
He mentioned that Miss Morgan had shown him this picture. I said, Ethan, because I had his schedule up on my computer going to planning on talking with him.
Okay.
And then I made the decision as the counselor to go into his class because it is, when a counselor goes into a class, it could be for anything.
Okay. You said you had made the decision to speak with him. Was that because of the email you received before Mr. Ejak came and saw you, or another reason?
It was based on the email that I received.
Okay.
And then when I already had the information that there was an assignment of some sort going on, then it solidified that decision even further that I was going to talk to the student.
Okay. Did Mr. Ejak show that to you, or did you see it from the email?
I did not see it until I saw the assignment in person in the class.
In person?
He was shown a picture of it on the phone.
Who's he?
Mr. Ejak
Okay.
was shown a picture of it on a cell phone.
All right.
So I had not seen the assignment at that point.
All right. And you made the decision to retrieve the defendant's son from class and bring him to your office.
Yes, his classroom was actually close to my office when he was in that hour.
Okay.
And so I made the decision that as a counselor, it would be easier for me to walk in there because that's a pretty common thing. And then I ended up grabbing the assignment and walking back to my office with the student.
Okay. Now, the first time you saw that assignment was in person in that classroom. That's correct?
I really didn't look at it much. I had it,
Okay.
but I wasn't studying it as we were walking back to my office.
Okay, this is Exhibit 123. It's already been admitted. Now, there's things drawn out in words added and certain words crossed out. Was that you retrieved from the defendant's son's classroom?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then you brought the defendant's son back to your office. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then when would you say is the first time that you really took a look at this?
a couple minutes after being back into my office was when I really took a look at it.
Okay.
I went through the email I received with him
With
from
who? The
Allison.
defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay.
The email from Allison Karpinski, and then sought clarification on that email. And then after receiving the clarification from the student on that email, I then looked over the paper with the defendant's son.
Okay, and what was your thought when you saw this paper, Exhibit 123?
My first thought was I wanted to get from him what he was doing. His initial response was that it was a video game, that he liked drawing for video games and liked being able to create in that way. So I let him describe it in that way at first, and then I asked him to talk about some of the words that he had written down.
Okay. By this
because
point,
those stuck out to me.
so by this point, had you seen the original drawing?
No,
Okay. So the words you were asking to explain were on this sheet here, 123.
that is correct.
Okay. So what words in particular stood out to you?
I noticed the words of "I love my life so much," "the thoughts won't stop." I could make out "help me" under the crossed out part, and "harmless act." So it made me concerned that a student may potentially be suicidal or be displaying suicidal ideation.
Okay. So I take it you didn't take the defendant's son explanation at face value.
I didn't take it at face value. I accounted for it as his description, but I wanted to make sure that I was looking at as much of a picture as I could.
Okay. So when you reviewed this drawing, and again, this is before you saw the original drawing, did you decide then to ask more pointed questions?
I did. I really wanted to point out the words that were in the drawing because they were the easiest to see, and I wanted to get explanation for the words that wasn't just, it's a video game.
Now, when you were speaking with the defendant son in your office, did he have a mask on?
He did.
Okay, did you have a mask on?
I did.
Could you tell what his demeanor was at that point?
As best as you could, without complete facial expression. You still have tone of voice, you still have pace of speech.
At this point, you never actually interacted with him without a mask, would that be right?
That is correct.
Okay. So, when you asked more pointed questions, tell us what happened next and why.
His demeanor at first was very compliant, and as I started asking about the words and asking him to describe the words, his demeanor shifted towards more of a sad demeanor.
Okay.
He started sharing some things that had gone on in his life.
Like what?
He mentioned that a family dog had died recently. He mentioned that a grandparent had passed, that he was struggling with COVID and with school through COVID. And he mentioned that he had an argument with his parents about grades the night before.
Okay. Did he tell you that a friend of his had abruptly left the state?
He did mention that a friend of his had left. He didn't say the state, just wasn't attending school anymore.
Okay. Now, did you make a decision based upon your conversation with him to call Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
Okay. Now, is that before or after you saw the original drawing?
I don't remember.
Okay. So during this conversation with the defendant's son, did you have the opportunity to look at the original drawing?
I did receive the original drawing in an email,
Okay.
probably 25 to 30 minutes after retrieving him from class.
So this is Exhibit 74. It's already been admitted. This is the original drawing that was shared with you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about this drawing causes you concern as well?
This drawing also gave me a lot of concerns of suicide. When I looked at it and I saw one body, when I looked at it and saw words that were internalized of "the thoughts won't stop, help me," I started becoming concerned about the student's well-being and made the decision that I parents.
Okay. So we had talked about checking with the teacher, checking with the student, calling the student in to the office, and a phone call to the parent. Now you decided to not just call the parent, but also call them in?
I did.
Okay. Now in the range of options with the counselor dealing with a parent, this is be the highest option, would that be right?
This would definitely be up there, yes.
Okay. So when was that decision made? How long, let me ask you this, how long were you with the defendant's son before you made that decision to call his mother?
To the best of my memory, at least 20 minutes.
Okay, so in that 20-minute time span, though, you made the decision to bring her in.
I did.
Okay. Tell us how that happened.
I asked, I actually told the student what I was going to do. I said, here's where we're at, and here's what I have to do. And I let him know that in this case, I need to call your parents and get them involved, because I want to make sure we get you help and support.
Okay.
I then gave student the option to choose which parent he wanted me to call. I do that quite frequently because it gives you an insight into the student a little bit. Of sometimes they might say, please don't call this parent. And student's response was it would be easier to get a hold of mom. So we called mom.
Okay. Now, did you tell him that you had concerns of suicidal ideation before you called Jennifer Crumbley?
I do not believe that I told him that, no.
And you indicated that you had seen in the fall of 2021 other aspects of suicidal ideation in other students?
Yes,
Okay. And you said even some students had even attempted suicide?
sadly, yes.
Okay. So you've had these sort of meetings where you call a parent in before?
I have.
Okay. And you said it was the defendant's son to call Jennifer Crumbley, or at least you'd have an easier time getting a hold of her?
Yeah, that was the statement. So I called mom, and I
Mom
believe,
being the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley?
yes, that is
Okay.
correct. And she was unable to answer that phone call. So I then asked,
Well, how do you know that? It went to voicemail?
yes,
Okay.
she did not answer
She
that
didn't
phone
answer.
call.
Okay.
And so I asked the student if it was okay for me to call his dad, and he said yes. I called dad, and it sounded like there was an answer, but it was also kind of like just dead air on the phone.
Okay.
So I hung up, and a few moments later, I received a phone call back from Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay. Now, if I told you that we had phone logs admitted into evidence that showed you left a message for Jennifer Crumbley at 9:24 a.m., would that sound right to you?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay. And then it appeared from those same records that she had called you back at 9:27 a.m. Does that also sound right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. Tell us about that conversation between you and Jennifer Crumbley at 9:27 a.m.
I let her know that I had the student in my office and I had some concerns and was hoping that she would be able to come into the school.
Was that on your office line?
It was on my office line, yes.
Did you have the telephone to your ear, or was it speakerphone?
At that point, it was to my ear, and I believe that mom asked to speak with Ethan, or the student. So I then put it on speakerphone and allowed them to talk to each other as well.
Okay, tell me about that, please.
Mom asked the student what was going on, and he didn't really have much, just kind of.
Okay. Did you tell the defendant that you had a drawing you were going to send her, the math worksheet?
I believe I did, yes,
Okay.
and then I sent it to her,
Okay.
to her cell phone.
And did she comment on that drawing, that math worksheet to you while she was on the phone with you?
Not to my memory.
You indicated to Jennifer Crumbley that you needed her to come into the office. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Did she say, okay, I'll be right there, or did she say something else?
She was hoping that Dad would be able to do it, that it would be difficult for her to get there, to leave work, and that she worked approximately 30 minutes from the school.
Okay. And that was 9:27 a.m. And when she told you that it'd be difficult for her to come there, was that on speakerphone?
I do not remember.
Okay. So what was from the records, it shows about a 5-minute phone call between you and Jennifer Crumbley at that point in time. Were you left with the impression that she was on her way then, or that you had to find another parent?
I was left with the impression that she was going to try and contact Dad, to have Dad come. And then approximately 10 minutes later, she called again saying that she was unable to get a hold of Dad, and that she would be on her way.
Okay. She being Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And you said you forwarded this Exhibit 74 to Jennifer Crumbley.
This was forwarded in the email.
Okay. And then this Exhibit 123 was also forwarded to her.
That was texted to her cell phone.
Texted Jennifer Crumbley's cell phone.
Yes.
All right.
Is this a good or bad time to break?
This would be fun.
Yeah, their lunch is here. So, Mr. Hopkins, you can't discuss your testimony with anyone before you return. Okay? All right? Then you can sit down. We'll come back at 1 o'clock. Okay? Right there, yeah, their lunch.
Thank you, Jeff.
All rise for the jury.
Okay. For this one. Okay, 1 o'clock?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.